Picture this. It's 2013. Traditional journalism is hemorrhaging young viewers. Major networks are scrambling to understand why millennials get their news from Twitter instead of television. But meanwhile, 3 former punk magazine publishers from Montreal are suddenly sitting across from Disney executives and tech billionaires pitching their vision for media's future. In under a decade, this rebellious startup skyrocketed to a $5.7 billion valuation, secured exclusive access to world leaders, and rewrote the playbook for digital journalism before crashing spectacularly into bankruptcy proceedings. This is the wild ride of how Vice built and destroyed a media empire. To grasp how Vice achieved such meteoric success before its devastating collapse, we must rewind to its humble beginnings. Montreal, 1994. Nirvana dominates alternative radio, the World Wide Web is still a curiosity. 3 20-somethings, Shane Smith, Surush Alvi, and Gavin McInnes, launch a scrappy arts publication funded by Canadian welfare programs. Vice remained underground for years, chronicling punk shows and counterculture movements. But by 2005, Smith sensed a cultural vacuum forming. Young people were tuning out legacy media in droves. To him, the message was clear. Traditional outlets had lost credibility. Soon after came a second realization. Audiences were starving for something raw, unfiltered, and real. And that's when it clicked. What if we became the fearless voice saying what no one else would? What unfolds next represents a revolutionary approach to content strategy that completely upended conventional media wisdom. Rather than copying industry standards, Smith implemented 4 radical departures that horrified traditional publishers. Move 1. Deliberately abandon journalistic objectivity while competitors desperately maintain neutral facades. Move 2. Exclusively target demographics that advertisers historically ignored. Move 3. Produce deliberately controversial material that mainstream outlets actively avoided. And move 4, prioritize viral distribution over traditional advertising when established media still relied on expensive TV commercials. Think about this. They embraced open bias in an industry built on neutrality, chased broke audiences no one else wanted, made content that scared away advertisers, and ignored traditional marketing entirely while competitors dumped millions into TV spots. On paper, it looks like a masterclass in what not to do. Marketing principle number 1. Transform weakness into differentiation through radical positioning. Smith's brilliance lay in recognizing Vice's limitations as competitive advantages. Unable to match established outlets' budgets or institutional credibility, he repositioned Vice as something entirely different. Authentic storytelling that rejected corporate sanitation. Examine these foundational choices. Deliberately amateur production values that screamed authenticity, correspondents who looked like their audience rather than polished actors, editorial perspectives that explicitly challenged power structures. Each decision reinforced genuine rebellious identity. Traditional journalism pretends to be objective while serving corporate interests. We're honest about our perspective. Shane Smith in his interview with the Journalism Lab in September of 2009. Smith essentially declared war on journalistic conventions, and younger audiences, they absolutely loved it. Creating authentic rebellion was only step 1. Vice needed distribution channels where legacy media remained vulnerable and ineffective. Rather than traditional media buying, Smith pioneered aggressive, platform-native strategies before most publishers understood digital engagement fundamentals. Vice's platform approach targeted specific digital territories. YouTube's early monetization gaps when major networks ignored online video, Facebook's initial video push offering massive organic reach opportunities, Snapchat Discover partnerships targeting mobile-first consumption, Instagram Stories for exclusive behind-the-scenes access, and direct campus recruitment building grassroots community loyalty. These weren't random social media experiments. They represented calculated moves to dominate spaces where young audiences gathered while traditional competitors remained absent. Marketing principle number 2. Dominate emerging platforms before established competitors recognize their value. Digital media veteran Sarah Marshall observed, Vice didn't adapt existing content for new platforms. They created platform-specific experiences that felt native to each environment. This approach transcended mere distribution. It represented comprehensive platform ecosystem domination. Smith's masterstroke involved recognizing that digital audiences valued different credibility markers than traditional media consumers expected. Marketing principle number 3. Redefine credibility metrics around access rather than institutional prestige. While legacy outlets competed for official press credentials and expert commentary, Vice pursued an entirely different credibility source: unprecedented access to forbidden stories. Vice's credibility formula centered on going where others couldn't or wouldn't venture. Correspondents infiltrated closed societies, documented underground movements, and secured interviews that established journalists couldn't obtain through traditional channels. Notice the fundamental difference. Established news networks might discuss North Korea with policy experts, while Vice actually smuggled cameras inside the Hermit Kingdom to document reality firsthand. And here's the amazing marketing stats from Vice. The legacy media demographic was 60 years old on average. The Vice audience demographic just 22 years old on average. The content engagement 800% higher than traditional news networks, and their production expenses 60% below television standards. By 2015, Vice had generated over 1.5 billion monthly digital impressions, accomplishing massive reach while operating at a fraction of traditional media budgets. Young people don't want talking heads explaining the world, they want to see it themselves, unfiltered. Shane Smith at his keynote speech in 2015. Vice's rapid credibility building demonstrated how digital natives valued experiential authenticity over institutional authority. Around 2013, Smith executed a pivotal maneuver that transformed Vice from alternative publisher into mainstream media darling. Major corporate partnerships and Silicon Valley investments became Vice's legitimacy accelerators, creating instant mainstream credibility that organically attracted both talent and audiences. And here's Vice's expansion metrics: $250 million in an HBO content partnership, $450 million from a Disney investment round, $5.7 billion at their peak market valuation, over 2,500 global staff members, and over 40 international bureau locations. This strategy completely inverted traditional media development patterns. Instead of gradually building audience credibility to attract corporate partners, Vice leveraged investor validation to accelerate audience growth exponentially. Consider this timeline. From welfare checks to Wall Street valuations, Smith turned a punk magazine into a multi-billion-dollar media empire, outpacing institutions that had been around for over a century. Marketing principle number 4. External validation isn't just social proof. It's a shortcut to trust, influence, and scale. Columbia Journalism School's Emily Bell analyzed this phenomenon. Vice convinced institutional investors they understood millennial engagement precisely when legacy media faced existential digital threats. Vice's ultimate triumph involved securing exclusive access to global power brokers that traditional media organizations constantly failed to obtain. By 2016, Vice correspondents regularly interviewed heads of state, cultural icons, and influential figures who specifically chose Vice over established outlets because of their unique audience reach. Vice's interview approach offered world leaders direct communication to younger audiences that traditional media struggled to engage with effectively. Vice's Obama interview alone generated more social sharings than traditional presidential coverage, establishing what industry observers termed Vice momentum, cultural conversations that transcended typical news cycles. And here's the timeline from Vice: 2012, initial celebrity adoptions and viral content; 2014, major political figure interviews begin; 2016, presidential access creates cultural phenomena; 2017, global influence peaks as young audience gateway; and finally in 2018, the mainstream media begins copying Vice's tactics. Throughout this entire ascension, Vice maintained relatively modest traditional advertising spending. Their exclusive content strategy generated organic viral distribution that purchase marketing couldn't replicate. Marketing principle number 5. In the content business, exclusive access creates compounding marketing advantages. This represents perhaps the most crucial insight for modern content creators and media entrepreneurs. Yet by 2023, this $5.7 billion media empire filed for bankruptcy protection and sold for a merely $350 million. What caused such a catastrophic value destruction? The collapse began with a perfect storm that turned Vice's greatest strengths into fatal weaknesses. Facebook's 2018 algorithm change devastated their organic reach overnight. Videos that once generated millions of views suddenly struggled to reach existing subscribers. This platform dependency exposed a fundamental flaw in their business model. As their digital reach crumbled, investor pressure demanded they double down on global expansion. Vice opened over 40 expensive international bureaus, desperately trying to replace lost online audiences with physical presence. But local advertising revenue couldn't support these operational costs. Each office became a money pit that drained resources faster than they could generate revenue. Facing financial pressure and declining reach, Vice made a critical mistake. They abandoned what made them special. To attract broader audiences, they diluted the rebellious brand with generic lifestyle content. The fearless voice that once challenged authority became just another mainstream outlet competing for the same advertiser-friendly content as everyone else. Then the scandal storm hit. Sexual harassment allegations against leadership shattered Vice's progressive image at the worst possible moment. Advertisers fled when credibility mattered most, accelerating their financial death spiral. The brutal truth became undeniable. Digital advertising rates simply couldn't support premium journalism at a global scale. Vice had achieved massive reach, but never cracked the monetization puzzle. They burned through investor money, trying to force a fundamentally broken economic model to work. By 2022, Vice was burning $100 million annually with insufficient revenue. And then finally, the inevitable happened. In 2023, Vice officially filed for bankruptcy. Once valued at nearly $6 billion, the company sold for just $350 million, a fraction of its former worth. Most of its international bureaus were shuttered, hundreds laid off, and the ambitious dreams of building the future of media collapsed into a cautionary tale. Today, Vice still exists, but it's a ghost of its former self. The flagship website continues publishing, now under new ownership, but the swagger is gone. No more edgy documentaries, no more boundary-pushing journalism, just another media brand surviving in a fragmented digital landscape. What killed Vice wasn't just bad leadership or market forces, it was the fatal belief that reach equals revenue. They won attention, but they never learned how to turn that attention into a sustainable business. The lesson? Revolutionary positioning cannot overcome flawed economics indefinitely. Vice's journey from punk magazine to billion-dollar empire to bankruptcy reveals the eternal struggle between visionary marketing and business reality. Here's what every entrepreneur must understand. Number 1. Authenticity trumps authority. Vice won by being genuinely alternative, not faking rebellions. Ask yourself, what makes your brand genuinely different? Not just marketing different, but actually different. Number 2. Timing beats everything. Early platform adoption created massive reach advantages. Ask yourself, what emerging platform could you dominate if you started today? Number 3. Access creates monopolies. Exclusive stories built competitive moats competitors couldn't cross. Ask yourself, what exclusive content or experiences can only you provide? Number 4. Validation accelerates growth. Strategic partnerships compress decades of credibility building. Ask yourself, which partnerships could instantly boost your credibility? And finally, number 5, economics always win. Brilliant positioning means nothing without sustainable unit economics. Ask yourself, can you actually make money at the scale you want without constant fundraising? And finally, here's the truth Vice learned too late. You can build an empire on vision, but you can only sustain it with execution. Vice proved that authentic content could disrupt entire industries. They just couldn't prove that disruption guarantees survival. We showed the world what young audiences wanted. We just couldn't figure out how to make money delivering it at scale. Shane Smith in 2023. The truth, Vice didn't fail because their vision was wrong. They failed because they forgot that revolutionary dreams still need profitable foundations. Now, if you like this marketing breakdown of Vice, hit that like button and subscribe to the Philosophy of Marketing. Drop a comment below, which media empire should we dissect next? Maybe Netflix, Disney, TikTok? Your vote decides our next deep dive. And remember, build like a revolutionary, operate like an accountant. Vision starts empires, economics sustains them.